So the important thing to keep in mind when we're talking about sexual orientation and puberty education or sexual health education is that you need to be addressing homophobia from the beginning of a school year. We know as educators that we need to be reflecting the youth that we're teaching's reality in our curriculum. So right from the start, in the beginning of the school year, when you hear, and you will hear, a queer bashing, or someone's calling someone a fag, or someone calling someone that's so gay, address that right away with the youth. Start building inclusion into your classroom that actually talks about gay, lesbian, bisexual reality. For instance, you could have a youth sitting in your classroom whose mom or dad or grandma and grandpa or brother and sister is gay, lesbian, or bisexual, or the youth themselves could be questioning their sexuality. What we want to do is, when we're talking about kinds of families, build in an acknowledgement that those youth's families gets recognized for them. Because they're probably sitting there wondering if their reality will be at all addressed throughout the school year. And if you're just talking about heterosexual families, then you're excluding those youth that are sitting there. So first of all, address homophobia when it happens in the schoolyard, address it in the classroom. Most classrooms have ground rules. Here we're going to respect each other, one person talking at a time. If you're concerned about addressing homophobia, what you can do is you can refer back to those ground rules and say, when you call someone a fag, it's disrespectful because. So address homophobia, build it into your curriculum in terms of talking about different kinds of family. Acknowledge the youth that are sitting there whose family is made up of people who are other than heterosexual. So do that all year long. The other thing that you could do is you can build in anti-homophobia training before you get to puberty or sexual health education. Rainbows and Triangles is a great resource that the TDSB has developed that you can refer to for a dictionary, for activities for kids from K to 6 and older in terms of addressing homophobia and building inclusion in your classrooms. When it comes to puberty education or sexual health education, it's important to remember that youth who are developing sexually will question their sexuality. It's normal. And we want to be there for them when they're doing that. Youth who sit in your classroom and who wonder about a same-sex attraction or a crush could be questioning whether or not they're LGBT or les, bi, gay, or trans. They could also just be wondering for now, they turn out to be heterosexual, and that's just fine. So what we want to do is address their reality. The fact that they are questioning their sexuality is normal. The fact that they have crushes is normal. Sexuality is a fluid thing. If we ask people to identify as only ever having heterosexual thoughts or only ever having gay thoughts, what we find out is that people sort of fall somewhere in the middle of that continuum. So when you're talking about sexuality, whether you're talking about intercourse or talking about a particular question, keep in mind that there are other sexualities other than heterosexual. Whether we're talking about particular sex acts, what's this or what's that. One of the ways I like to address it if someone's talking about oral sex, we're talking about oral sex on a man, so a mouth on a penis. One of the things you could say is it's when a man or a woman puts their mouth on a penis. So it's things like that that we can build into how we actually do sexual education that acknowledges that youth experiment, and that's healthy, that they fantasize, and that's healthy, and that they may or may not turn out to be heterosexual or homosexual. It doesn't mean that what they're thinking about now will define who they are later in life. So building in those realities is very important. In terms of what would have been helpful for me when I was in grade 4, 5, 6, would have been actually to hear my reality reflected in puberty classes. So not all people are developing their breasts and their body to feed a baby and just have sex with a man. So having that acknowledged when I was younger would have been really helpful. It made me aware that there were options and that someone out there who was an adult didn't see those options as necessarily wrong, but acknowledged that they were healthy and they were normal and they could in fact lead to a healthy, happy life. That would have been really helpful for me as my sexuality was developing. Grade 4 or 5, I wouldn't necessarily have been as aware, but some kids are aware of their sexuality, especially if they come from a family who talk about those options. And again, we're talking about reflecting kids' realities. If someone at home is open around gay, les, bi issues and they come to class, they're probably expecting some of that openness will also follow through in the class. But we know, because homophobia is so prevalent, the kids who are figuring out their sexuality, if it's not heterosexual, are also learning to hide. We don't want that to happen. We want kids to be able to express who they are in the classroom, and we want their reality reflected back from teachers and respectful classmates. That would have been helpful for me.